Believe it or not, we've been thinking about Ubisoft a lot lately, but we're not thinking about the state of things as they are currently, which is a mess. We've been looking back to the good old days when, you know, the big, massive French game publisher slash developer was pumping out all kinds of good games at a consistent clip. Gamers always had their complaints and grievances and annoyances with them, sure, but we got a steady diet of what some would consider pretty damn awesome games. And when you really think about it, it doesn't feel like it's that too long ago. I mean, just, you know, when they cracked the code with Far Cry 3, when they had killer Tom Clancy games like Splinter Cell, when Prince of Persia was at the top of their game. You had their E3 press conferences that actually elicited excitement and not just a massive bore. People reference this one a lot. I've seen it become a meme, but like, think of when you saw the basement underneath Villa Auditore for the first time in Assassin's Creed 2, seeing all those cool statues, inferring so many different potentially awesome Assassin's Creed games. Yeah, damn right, we definitely got a lot of Assassin's Creed games after that, but nothing ever felt quite like that moment. So the question posed with this video, with the title, is does Ubisoft deserve a comeback? I think most gamers, like, you've clicked on the video, you've already answered the question. No, they probably don't. I mean, Ubisoft as a company has essentially made every single mistake you could. You alienated your customer base, you pissed them off, you over-monetized, you launched buggy, messy games. You burned out the people that work for you and the developers, you've laid tons off, you've closed entire studios, you've canceled games, you've had other games languish in development hell for like a decade. You've had issues in the workplace, all kinds of allegations, union busting, just poor leadership at the top. And then, of course, whatever the hell's going on with Ubisoft now, from 2024 to now 2026, and their corporate restructuring and confusing shuffling of development studios and IP to like different safe havens or newly restructured corporate umbrellas. I don't know. We're not here to analyze the business behind Ubisoft and whatever the hell they're doing now. And again, the big question, does Ubisoft actually deserve a comeback? No. But what we can argue is that their franchises probably do. Some of their intellectual property, some of the game franchises that they're sitting on and now kind of squandering, those definitely deserve a new lease on life. As much as people want new and original games, Ubisoft owned and was responsible and created a lot of franchises that people just want to see more of. And it feels like right now, all that's really slowing down. Or at least it feels very far from something like, case in point, E3 2012. When Ubisoft did their press conference at E3 2012, they revealed a bunch of awesome gameplay for Far Cry 3 that blew people away. They had a gameplay demonstration for Assassin's Creed 3, you know, when the series was really firing on all cylinders. Watch Dogs was announced, and that blew everyone away. The game obviously didn't look quite like that when it did launch. We talked about that to death, but still, the moment when it was announced, it was a new thing, a completely new adventure. People were pumped for that. They announced a new Just Dance 4 because they were printing money with that fun, casual franchise. Rayman Legends, the revival of Rayman with incredible animation and beautiful music, was revealed. And they were experimenting and doing weird things. They revealed a weird, quirky zombie game for the Nintendo Wii U that took advantage of the Wii U's unique and weird feature set. That was Zombie U, and that just feels like some cool experimental game that we just wouldn't see from them today. It just feels like now in 2026, everything is so much more complicated, where you go back just a decade or so and we were getting tons of awesome new Tom Clancy games, like Ghost Recon games, like Future Soldier. Then back to the incredible advanced warfighter games, Splinter Cell games at a pretty consistent clip, with Splinter Cell Chaos Theory arguably being like a genre-defining stealth action game, just incredible top to bottom. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was incredible and then kicked off a fun new franchise revival with that, then Warrior Within, Two Thrones, a bunch of other stuff. Look, they had their hits and misses as they went on, like a lot of their franchises, but they kept doing stuff. They tried to keep things fresh, and they kept us entertained. Were all the games that they were pumping out Game of the Year material? No. But still, at that time, you had people that were looking forward to Far Cry 4. People wanted to see what was next because they loved Far Cry 3. Nowadays, and rightfully so, it feels like a lot of announcements are met with cynicism. If they announce a Far Cry 7, people are gonna go, okay, really? All right, what are we doing here? Let's see what they got. Tom Clancy games are few and far between, and usually it's tied to like a live service thing. Then you have the Prince of Persia franchise, which it feels like now at this point they're like afraid to take advantage of, because you got Prince of Persia, Lost Crown, and Rogue Prince of Persia, two great games that underperformed because, to be completely honest, it seems like a lot of people didn't even know about them. Then you have the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. That seems like it's been up in like development hell for quite some time now. We don't know what's going on with that, but that's where we're kind of at now, is that, like, you know, we're still getting some games here and there, but then they're also relying on a lot of remake stuff. The most anticipated Assassin's Creed as of right now is the leaked, rumored, suggested Assassin's Creed Black Flag remake. They have that Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. They have a Splinter Cell remake in the works. All the while, like a lot of companies trying to chase the live service trend, and in a lot of instances falling flat on their face. Don't even get me started on the NFT game that they tried to push and all that stuff, but really, that free-to-play shooter from like a year or so ago, Tom Clancy's X-Defiant, just felt like a massive blunder, a huge failure, really a humiliation, because it was scrapped because of low player numbers. Nobody really cared. It feels like top-level leadership at Ubisoft has really just slowly forgotten what players really enjoy, like what makes players tick, like what people love. And I say that, and this is gonna sound crazy, but there was a time when Ubisoft was actually doing very good with the multiplayer live service stuff. Think about how long Rainbow Six Siege was supported. Think about how long For Honor was supported. That game released, a lot of people wrote it off, but it had years and years of players and years of content keeping them engaged and happy. These titles, they support them for a long time. Are they the most massive, big, huge Fortnite things? No, but it felt like they were doing them right and serving their player base right, you know, with some missteps here and there. But now more recently you have things like X-Defiant, and then that Ghost Recon Frontline game, that battle royale game that was announced, immediately mocked by players and pretty much canceled. That just makes it feel like Ubisoft completely lost their touch, you know, their finger on the pulse. And I'm not saying that they were the best at that, but again, I'm just pointing back to franchises, new games, stuff like that, that they really nurtured, supported, and grew years and years ago before this seemingly slow downward slide, downward decline. So again, Ubisoft may not deserve a comeback as a corporation, but those incredible franchises, those creative ideas made by creative people, those deserve a comeback. For Tom Clancy games and Splinter Cell to be on the top of everybody's mind, look, I know I sound like an old man yelling at a cloud, but stuff like that, good multiplayer games, how they supported and developed and incubated great ideas with kind of AA and some indie games that they helped publish. To Assassin's Creed not feeling like this massive, overly bloated experience that it feels like a ghost of its former self. Look, I know Assassin's Creed Shadows was a step in the right direction, and technically it did sell a lot, but I'm an old complaining fan, so let me have this moment. To even the way they did great collaborations with things like Nintendo, like the Mario Rabbids games were incredible. The original Watch Dogs, even though everybody shit on it when it released because it wasn't as good as they were hoping, it's still a really cool game. It's fun to go back and replay that and Watch Dogs 2. There's just so many examples to point to of Ubisoft really feeling like they're on this upward, exciting trajectory for gamers, and then it all kind of plateaued. It feels like all of their franchises and the excitement for them have not reached new heights. And that to me feels like a problem with the corporation itself, right? The leadership, the executives at the top level making these decisions and consistently and continuously over the last couple of years shooting themselves in the foot, until at this point now in 2026, it feels like they're starting to run out of toes. So do I have solutions in this video? No, this isn't really that kind of video. The crew here at gameranx, we were kind of just sitting around talking in our little chat, kind of reminiscing about the good old days. It sounds corny, but we arguably spent a lot of time shitting on Ubisoft, but there was nothing like, you know, seeing the first reveal trailer for Assassin's Creed, waiting for that little video to buffer on IGN.com on our shitty computers, to the upgrade that was Assassin's Creed 2 and how much it really leveled up that first game and set the stage for an incredible franchise, to, again, seeing Ubisoft really crack the code with Far Cry 3. After experimenting in really cool ways with Far Cry 2, Far Cry 3 really felt like the establishment of a formula. It's just a formula that they would abuse for a long time. I've talked about Splinter Cell enough, but like smaller things like Valiant Hearts, you remember that? Yes, in 2014, Ubisoft published this kind of smaller game experience, a 2D adventure set in the First World War, and it was incredible. It was engaging from a gameplay perspective, but it also had heart and told a great story. It was just something else, man. Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends showed they could do the lighthearted, quirkier stuff. Beyond Good and Evil felt like it came out of nowhere and was just a really incredible and fun experience with like a great art style, cool gameplay. The original Division, like I know people gave that game a lot of flack, but for the people it clicked with, like it did with me personally, you just had to be there, man. That was a great experience. I'm curious to see where things are gonna go now with all their corporate restructuring and all that stuff going on. I don't know where Ubisoft is gonna end up, but at the very least, it seems like some people liked Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I know people really like the other ones, Valhalla, Odyssey, Origins, and I'm glad they're still giving the Anno franchise some love. Anno 117 released in late 2025, and I actually really enjoyed the hell out of that. We need more of that energy, and we want to see these franchises like push forward, not just endlessly remake some of the best ones in the franchise, you know? So again, so people don't misconstrue me, I am not necessarily rooting for Ubisoft as a corporation to make a comeback, and nor do I think they are deserving of one, but some of these franchises that we loved, they deserve better. From Prince of Persia to the South Park games, to their movie tie-in games like the King Kong game, to Rainbow Six Vegas or Ghost Recon or Beyond Good and Evil, we just wanted to see the return of that soul, that energy more than anything. And a comeback isn't necessarily unrealistic. Me personally, I want like a completely different leadership. I want an overhaul of everything, right? But comebacks have happened. Look at Capcom. Capcom was quote unquote on its knees after Resident Evil 6. Constant missteps, pissing off their customer base, overly monetizing, releasing games that people just didn't like or rushed or were messed up. Sound familiar? Yeah. But Capcom managed to turn it around, and now, honestly, we glaze Capcom a lot because they've done such a good job reviving the Resident Evil franchise, the Monster Hunter franchise. Hell, they brought back Dragon's Dogma. I never expected anything like that. So, crazier things have happened. I don't need Ubisoft, quote unquote, as a brand to make a comeback. I just want the games themselves to have a comeback. They are working on The Division 3, and one of the producers said that game is going to be a monster. They're also still working on plenty of Assassin's Creed games. Maybe one day they'll release a new Far Cry game that feels completely different and fresh and blows us all away and changes everything. Who knows? Not to be too pessimistic, but God knows, we'll see what happens, but we just wanted to take a trip down memory lane today. If you have fond memories of some of these older Ubisoft franchises, let us know, but also if you're playing their new stuff, we'd love to hear from you as well, because plenty of people are, but it just feels like the complaints are louder these days. Either way, let's talk. Anything Ubisoft, hit us up down in the comments. What was your first Tom Clancy game? What was your first Rayman game? Let's talk anything at all down there. Of course, Ubisoft will continue to release games, and we're looking forward to talking about them and covering them for you guys. So subscribe if you haven't to be kept in on the loop, but that's what we got for you today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.